Okay, in this tutorial we're going to have a quick look at how you answer an exam question that is looking at an anticyclonic weather system, what we might commonly call high pressure, how you'd approach answering it, and the kind of skills that you need. The first thing that you would need to do to answer this question is be familiar with synoptic weather symbols. So what I would suggest you do is pause the video at this point and see if you can write down on a piece of paper the key elements of this weather symbol we see up here. Okay, now assuming you've maybe noted down what you think is the weather in Bathgate, let me just describe what we can see on the synoptic weather symbol. So we can see there is 1 octa of cloud cover. What that means is there's very little cloud cover in the sky. It's 1/8 of the sky's covered in clouds. We can see that the temperature is -2. We can see the wind is coming from the west because the little arm is pointing towards that, and we always talk about where the wind comes from. And we can see that the wind speed is 5 knots because we have half a tick. If we had a full tick, it would be 10 knots. So we have a light wind speed. We have wind coming from the west, or westerly wind, -2. We also have no weather symbol down here in this section of the symbol. So we have no rain, drizzle, or snow or anything else. If we did, there would be a little symbol in where I'm holding the cursor. Now that we've got a description, the question isn't actually asking you for describing this particular synoptic weather symbol, but what the question is asking you is to give reasons for the weather in Bathgate on the 28th of December 2014. And therefore, how can you give reasons without, first of all, knowing what the weather is? And that's where your knowledge of synoptic weather symbols is very important. So here's what you should be looking to write. You might choose to write these things down, but first to see how much you can remember, and then I'll go through all the possible points you could make that would get you a mark. Okay, the first thing that you're going to want to do is explore the temperature. So why is it -2? There are 2 reasons that you can get. So there's 2 possible marks that you could have written for the -2 temperature. The first one could be that it is the 28th of December, as shown at the top of the question, and that indicates that it is winter time and it's likely that Bathgate's getting very little radiation from the sun, and that's why it's very cold. The second mark comes from knowing something about high pressure. We can see that the pressure is between 1016 and 1020, as shown on these lines called isobars. So it's sitting at quite close to 1016. High pressure tends to mean that the air is sinking. That means there is likely to be very few clouds. For clouds, you need air to be rising and taking moisture with it to form the clouds. But if the air is sinking because the pressure is high, there's going to be very few clouds. And because there's very few clouds, all the heat is escaping, because clouds would normally trap the heat. Because there are no clouds, the heat escapes, and that is why it is -2. Right, so we have 2 possible reasons for that temperature. Let's have a look at the lack of cloud cover. Why is there 1 octa of cloud cover? Well, I've actually given that reason. Because it is high pressure, the air is sinking. Clouds are not therefore forming, and that is why we only have 1 octa of cloud cover. So that is the explanation you would offer for that. Okay, why is the wind coming from the west? Well, for that reason, we need to understand something about high pressure and these isobars. Now, winds in anticyclones, which is the technical name for high pressure, follow a clockwise pattern. So if you imagine a hand of a clock ticking round as I'm showing on the screen, that's clockwise. And as the winds follow the isobars, these indicate the wind directions. If it's travelling clockwise, we can see that it's coming from the west at the point where Bathgate sits. And that's why there is a westerly wind. Our final mark comes from saying something about the little half tick. Why do we have 5 knots of wind speed? And the reason for that is because the isobars are far apart and the pressure is high. And in high pressure, you tend to have low wind speeds, and the further apart the isobars are, then the lower those wind speeds are going to be, which is why we have a low wind speed. Now, there is additional opportunity for a mark. We have no weather. Now, weather normally describes rain, snow, or sleet. But because we have no weather, and you could say we have no weather, we have no rain, snow, or sleet in Bathgate, and that's because there are no weather fronts visible on this map. And typically it would be weather fronts. And when I say weather fronts, I mean cold and warm fronts that would cause there to be rain or in wintertime snow in any location on which that weather front was sitting on a map. But because this map shows no weather fronts, there is no weather occurring in Bathgate. So that is a mark that you could get credit for. You're acknowledging something that's not happening and explaining why it's not happening in a means to give reasons for the weather conditions. Okay, so I've gone through 2 ideas of temperature for 2 marks, 1 reason for cloud cover for 3 marks, the wind direction was 4 marks, the half tick was 5 marks. You notice the question is worth 5, so you would need to apply all of that knowledge to try to explain the weather that you're seeing in Bathgate. There is an additional 6th mark that I've explored, which is the lack of rain or snow, and given a reason for that.